there was a moment when everything was still under control. The factories were running, the engineers were confident, the numbers looked perfect. From the outside, there was no reason to panic, but somewhere between comfort and certainty, something went wrong. Not a collapse, not a scandal, not a mistake anyone could point to, just time. While the world began to move faster, they chose to move carefully. While speed became survival, they chose perfection. And while the rules quietly changed, they kept playing by the old ones. This wasn't ignorance. This wasn't incompetence. This was experience betraying its own masters. Because when you've led an industry for decades, you stop watching the clock. And when you stop watching the clock does not stop for you. What followed wasn't dramatic. There were no alarms, no headlines, only a slow disappearance that most people didn't notice until it was over. Two names, once trusted by millions, now rarely spoken. This is not the story of failure. It is the story of being too slow to realize that the future had already arrived. And the most dangerous part? No one noticed. Because in that era, phones weren't judged by screens, or ecosystems, or software updates. They were judged by trust, by reliability, by the feeling that once you owned one, you were safe for years. This was a time before apps ruled attention, before notifications controlled behavior, before operating systems became empires. It was a world where hardware still mattered, and in that world, some companies didn't follow trends. They defined them. Before the world carried computers in its pockets, before touchscreens replaced buttons, before iOS and Android became digital empires, Motorola and Panasonic were gods. Power creates confidence, and confidence, when left unquestioned, slowly becomes belief. Belief that the rules will not change. Belief that leadership is permanent. Belief that tomorrow will look like yesterday. And that belief is where danger begins. Because the higher you stand, the harder it is to see the ground moving beneath you. For years, nothing challenged that belief. Sales were strong, reputation was untouchable, warnings were easy to ignore, until one moment forced the entire industry to look in a different direction. Not because it was louder, but because it was different. And that difference would reset everything. But disruption doesn't destroy companies instantly. It creates confusion first, questions without answers, teams without alignment, decisions that feel dangerous no matter which way you turn. And inside one company in particular, the real battle wasn't happening in the market, it was happening inside the walls. While one giant fought itself internally, another watched from a safer distance. No chaos, no headlines, no public mistakes, just a quiet choice to stay comfortable. And sometimes, comfort is the most dangerous decision of all. Eventually, reality could no longer be ignored. The world had chosen its platforms, the ecosystem war had begun, and there was only one possible response left. Not innovation, not dominance, adoption. For a moment, it looked like survival. New releases, new software, new chances. But momentum had already shifted, and when momentum is gone, even strong moves feel weak. What followed wasn't recovery, it was liquidation. When the dust settled, the industry moved on, but the lesson remained, hidden beneath headlines, buried under newer stories. A lesson not about products, but about behavior, because this story doesn't belong to the past. It is repeating right now, in different companies, in different industries. The names change, the pattern does not. There was a moment when everything was still under control. The factories were running, the engineers were confident, the numbers looked perfect. From the outside, there was no reason to panic, and that was the problem. Because history rarely announces itself. It doesn't warn, it doesn't knock, it simply arrives, faster than those who believe they have time. The companies in this story didn't disappear overnight. They faded while watching their legacies instead of the clock. They didn't lose because they stopped trying. They lost because they waited. And in the end, it wasn't innovation that destroyed them. It was hesitation. Because when the world accelerates, standing still feels safe until it doesn't. And by the time you look up, everything that once felt under control is already gone.